Hi Couldnt Clan fam. Today Shaun and I are going to do a Q&A about foster care. We're going to answer some questions that are just general, and we're going to answer some questions about things that we've actually been through. Most of these questions are from our viewers, but make sure you stick around till the end because Shaun is going to tell you from a man's perspective,
right,
what he thinks about doing foster care. Have you ever had a child that you couldn't deal with?
yes, we have.
We've had three.
We've had three.
At least.
And a biological child.
Yeah.
But you can't do anything about that other than work your way through life with that situation.
So, well, let's elaborate maybe. So Brianna was a tough kid growing up. And so I feel like we really got broken in. But yes, as far as the foster kids go, we have had several that we couldn't deal with. And just what that looks like is they had very, very disruptive behaviors. And one of the kids had FAS, and he was considered DD, which is delayed development, but he was a teenager, and so he would get very emotional and could get very, very disruptive, so much sometimes that I had to call Shaun home from work just to be able to help me with him.
Yeah.
And we were doing professional foster care at the time. And he came into our house as a 5-day stay, which was a pilot program Nebraska was putting on to allow the caseworkers extra time to find placements for the really tough kids. And so he came in like that, and then we ended up taking permanent placement of him. And he stayed with us for probably about 5 months, 4 or 5 months maybe. And then at that point, he ended up moving on, but we had him, and I know we had at least one other child that was part of that program that we had a really, really hard time with. And then, Jade gives us behaviors. Her and Gavin both have ODD, and so they can have very disruptive behaviors at times. Although, they're adopted, so they're ours. But, you kind of learn, I feel like, how to handle that.
Yeah. Yeah, how to put the fires out and get it in a manageable situation. It gets to a point where you see it coming sometimes, and you can try and herd the other kids to a different part of the house and then deal with it.
Yep. I feel like one of the hardest things is, at least with him, he didn't want to take his medicine. And so then there was a point in time where he went about a week without it, and he got really very, very disruptive at that point. Sometimes though, I feel like you can learn skills like resets will help work, sometimes with them. Or, sometimes I feel like with Jade, all she really wants is a hug, so she can be kind of explosive, and then she gets a hug and all of a sudden she's fine. So finding what works for those kids. Have you ever given notice?
Yes, we have.
One time we gave notice. So technically 2 times.
Right.
One time was with the boy we were just talking about. He got just a little too out of control, a little bit more than we could manage. and he ended up going off and getting more professional help that he needed, and I think he got better. We still actually had contact with him afterwards. We didn't want to just make him feel like he had been abandoned, so we continued to talk to him afterwards. And but you have to, I feel like you have to know when to say when. We dealt with a lot. And we had a lot of skills, I feel like, too, because we worked with the therapists. But when it gets too hard for you to manage, you just have to kind of know your limit.
Yeah, and it'll become apparent to you. I think it was affecting my work. It was affecting, I would take him to school on my way to work, and I would get calls by noon asking me to, come get him, come help them find him. He would leave school, things like that. And it just kind of escalated from there. He just kind of went into a different place that we didn't really feel comfortable with handling.
A lot of times those kids become very disruptive to the other kids in your house. And sometimes it becomes a safety issue. And so you just have to know, when you can handle it and when you can't. So the second time that we gave notice, we actually, it was for no other reason except for the kids just needed some closure. So it was in our case with our group of 6 that we have, which we had 5 of them at the time. And we set it up so that way we could get the kids to go back home, because they had been in the system for, at that time, it had been almost 3 years. And
there was really no end in sight.
No, there wasn't. They had filed TPR 3 times. They had pulled TPR 3 times, and they kept making these kids just linger in the system, despite the therapist recommendations that they needed, some closure. So we gave our notice after we had talked with the professionals on the case. So we talked to the therapist, we talked to the CASA, we talked to the GAL, and we told everybody, that we needed to get this case going. We needed this case to end, for the kids' sake. And so we said, we didn't want them moving on to another foster home, because that wouldn't be beneficial for them. They just needed to go home and see if their mom could do it. And ultimately
that was the hardest decision we've ever had to make.
Oh my
it was
gosh.
heart-wrenching, putting them in the van that last day, knowing that, we instigated them going back home. We helped propagate that, and one of the best days of our life then was 5 weeks later. They were back in the system, and we were the first on the list. And
well, we knew they shouldn't go home. We knew she wasn't ready, but we also knew that the state wasn't going to terminate. They for some reason were bound to determine they were going to get these kids back home, and instead of letting them linger another year or 2 in the system, we decided to work with some of the other professionals to get them back home. That way we could actually see, if she was going to be able to do it or not. And
in the meantime, we moved, and we tried to move on, and we relocated, and that's when we got the call 5 weeks later, I think.
Yeah. If you haven't seen that video, make sure you check it out. I talk about that story in our video called Fostering a Large Sibling Group, where I talk about how we moved and then came back. So make sure you guys check that one out if you haven't. How did you feel when a child had to move on?
Sad.
Yeah.
But worse, if the longer the kids are here, the harder it is. They just become part of your daily life. I mean, you tuck them in at night, you force them to brush their teeth every morning, those type of things. But yes, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, but it's not something that isn't doable. I mean, it's one of those barriers I think people have to not fostering, is because they worry about what that's going to feel like and look like for the family, for somebody to leave. But usually it's on a good note, and occasionally it's not, but it usually is on a good note. They leave, and you feel fairly good about the influence you had on those children.
Yeah, and I feel like from my perspective, there were some kids that we had in the 5-day stay program that when they left, I actually felt relieved. Some of them would rummage through our things, which in the hard things video that we've done, I talk about that's my pet peeve. And so I would feel a sense of relief that I wouldn't have to worry about them going through my things. But there are times where the kids go home and you're sad, but you're happy for them because they get to be with their family that they really wanted to be with. And then there are times where I feel like it's really hard because they move on and they shouldn't have moved on. In our first case with Jade and Lily, we thought we were going to adopt them, and we did. But right after they asked us about adopting them, they started doing this thing in what they do in Nebraska called family findings, and they were looking for biological family for them to go to. And all of a sudden they started finding people, and we were really worried that they were going to move them. And so, that would have been really tough. I think it's really tough when they ask you if you want to adopt, and then all of a sudden they're still looking for other places, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I think ultimately they just want to know that you're willing to adopt, which is why they ask.
Right.
Is going into foster care to adopt counterintuitive? And this is a great question.
Yeah. And the more you think about it, it's like, man,
seems like
kind
it
of is counterintuitive. But really, when you go into it not out to adopt versus going into it to adopt, it alerts those decision makers on what children in cases to present to you. So they're going to send you more of the cases that are close to termination, meaning the parental rights have been already terminated or taken away, or they already have been terminated.
Close to it or have been, yeah. I think that, we did that. We went into foster care and told them that, we would love to adopt if we could. And when they placed Jade and Lily with us, they placed them with us from another foster home, and it was because they had been in the system for a year and it looked like it was going to termination. And they wanted those kids to be in a home where if that ended up happening, they could be adopted by that family. So they placed them with us because of that. So you can, whether it's an agency that you're working with, let your agency worker know, or whether it's the state, and you have a caseworker,
Right.
just letting them know what cases, you're looking for, that you're interested in adoption. But I have a lot of foster mom friends that would love to adopt, and they are 2-3 years into fostering, and they haven't yet. But they have gone into it not only to adopt but also to help kids. And so, you want to be there for the kids that you can't adopt, maybe have a relationship with them afterwards, but then you're also there for the kids that eventually do need to be adopted.
Right.
I was looking online, and it said on Google that 54% of foster care cases end up in adoption. So when you think about that it's 50-50, you do have a pretty good chance of being able to adopt.
Yeah, you do. And is it counterintuitive to go into it fostering to adopt? No. What that's doing is increasing your chances of not going through the heartache of losing the kids you were going to want to adopt.
Yep.
So you go into it with a little bit better chance of getting the outcome you want.
Yep. Yeah. Do our kids get along?
Yeah, they do. They do. The longer they're together and the older they get, it seems like the better they get along.
The older they get, yeah.
Yeah. At this point, you don't see a lot of rivalry between the two groups, sibling groups. At first you see that where one, part of the one sibling set will be quarreling or fighting with the other sibling set, and a brother or sister on her side will try and get involved to take care of her.
Yep.
And I think that's just innate in all of us. We want to protect those that are our own, and those are the closest ones, that they feel like are their own at the time.
Yep.
But the more time goes by, they are intermingled all the time.
Yep.
They are family. I mean,
We don't
there's
really see
no
that
difference.
anymore.
Yeah.
Where I see them all sticking up for each other. So if two kids are fighting, they stick up for the kid that, is being wronged. I feel like it's not a matter of whether it's a biological sibling or not. But our kids are also normal kids, and we have them all stacked on top of each other as far as age goes. And so, they bicker, and it would be like no different than any other siblings do. But for the most part, they love each other, they stick up for each other, and we're like one big normal family, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
What are your worries for the future?
And I think for the most part, we are on the same page as far as what we worry and think about. And for the kids, the big ones for me are the financial aspects and the space aspects. We went into it knowing that there were going to be, space problems as they get older. And we're working currently on having an addition put on the house. But as these kids get to be teenagers, it's going to be a matter of, are we going to be able to keep groceries coming in fast enough? Because as a lot of you guys know, teenagers eat and then they eat and eat and eat. So my concerns are, I guess, a little bit more financial aspect or related.
You had mentioned the cars and the car insurance.
Putting the kids in cars, we have 12-year-old through 1, and there's 10 of them in there. So you can imagine every year there'll be at least one child needing a car, needing insurance, gas money, while they're eating you out of house and home. And they'll have bigger bodies. I mean, these kids are little right now, and it seems fine in the space we're in right now, but the bigger they are and the more adult-like they get, the more space to stretch out a little bit will be needed. So those are the things I worry about. Really the only other thing I worry about is, what's going to happen after they get out of college? Are they going to be able to support themselves?
Oh, yeah.
Are they going to meet the right people in their life? Or, there's just a lot of factors, basically forever that we'll have concerns about.
And that, I think, comes with, just parenting in general, worrying about your kids and their future. And then the financial aspect, although that can be, a normal family too. But, when you have such a large family, you definitely, I feel like, that comes up.
Yeah.
My concerns are more for the kids that have behavioral and mental health concerns. And what that's going to look like for them in the future, how that's going to affect their life as they get older. And so, the other kids, I don't worry so much about. I really used to worry about if they went back to their birth parents, how their future was going to look, because I know that it would look totally different than it does with us. But I don't worry about that so much anymore because I feel like they're going to have pretty good futures. It's just the ones that have the behavioral and mental health concerns that I worry most about.
Right.
How can I be more successful as a foster parent? So if you are currently a foster parent, I think that there are a couple ways that you can be more successful and also feel like more of an integral part of the system. You hear a lot of times that people feel like glorified babysitters, and they had even said that in the movie we watched.
Right.
But I feel like for me, communication, making sure that I'm communicating with everybody, what's going on with the kids, what's going on with the case from our perspective and our side of things, with maybe visitations or behaviors or therapy, all those things. I used to actually do a weekly email where I would write down what was going on with the kids. And then I would send it out to everybody. So I would include the CASA, the GAL, the caseworker, the agency worker, everyone was included on that. that, so everyone then was on the same page as far as what was happening with the kids.
Yeah.
And then there wasn't any, miscommunication, or I also feel like that makes you a huge part of the team. So you have made yourself an asset then, as far as the case, and the team goes.
Yeah, and the bottom line, really, I mean, here's the deal. The system is way overloaded. These caseworkers have more notes and documentation than I want to think about. Yeah. And anytime they get a foster parent or foster couple that takes over and handles a lot of that documentation, I mean, it's huge for them to be able to say, okay, what happened this week, and you've already got it all typed out, and here it is, type of thing. And not all the time was it like that, but when you've got things documented and you're being proactive with those people, if there's a problem, you call them and then you document it. You've got this paper trail for them that you've created, that takes a lot of load off of them. And suddenly they're looking at you like, I like these people. They're easy to work with, right, and they help me with my job rather than make it harder.
Right. And we also didn't call about every little tiny thing. We were like,
we handled everything that we could possibly handle without them.
Right.
And I feel like that is how it should be.
Yes. And I think that goes along with having a really good therapist. And having someone or some type of a resource that you have outside of your group of professionals that you can turn to in a crisis, or if you need help with the behavior, or our therapist, I feel like, was just invaluable to us with the kids. And then also our agency had a 24-hour on-call person. So if something happened, we could always call our agency and they would have somebody there to help you kind of work through things.
Right.
We didn't use that very often, but occasionally when things got really hard, we did call.
Yeah. When you feel like things are getting out of control and you've tried a few of your tactics to bring them down or bring the situation down and it doesn't work, they're usually a phone call away.
Yeah.
But it does help them to try and problem solve yourself, and then maybe mention at a scheduled meeting with them later in the week or next month. It just takes a lot off their plate, and I know they appreciate it, and then you get a good reputation and rapport with these people.
And we made sure that we always went to everything. We went to every court hearing. We went to every team meeting. And
if we were invited, we went usually.
Yep.
And still do. I mean.
Yeah. All right. Last question. Drum roll. This is the question everybody's been waiting for. As the guy, there's probably a lot of women out there that want to do foster care, but they're not sure that their husbands would be into it, or maybe their husband said no. But what is your perspective as the guy actually being in foster care?
Once you get into it, the rewards are off the charts. If you love raising kids, if you love teaching, certain trades to your kids, there's just so much that those kids need and want, and they give back, tenfold. I would say, being realistic as far as, these kids will come into your house and they will require additional time from your wife, and take some of her focus off of you. So you have to be secure in your relationship as far as your husband and wife relationship there. You don't want somebody who's going to get jealous because my wife's now spending more time with the 12-year-old girl, taking her shopping, and, I wanted to go, whatever. That doesn't happen. But
you don't want to go shopping?
No, I do not. But really, I think that's the big thing is being open-minded and not having a selfish part to you that you know about and is evident before you get into the foster care, world.
When you played a big part in, I guess right here, I'm thinking about the older kids. When you took out the boys to mow or to build,
Right.
they helped you paint. They did things like that with you.
Right.
The girls, I remember, and this is the younger girls that we have, they always loved to sit on your lap and you'd read them a book. Just that relationship building, I feel like. And I think from a dad perspective, that's so important to these kids. Not that you couldn't be a single parent and do foster care, because I think that's great too. But just as a couple, what we have to offer, you play a big part in that.
Yeah. And you're able to bring a lot of things to the table that say a wife or a mom doesn't in the case of outdoor stuff. I'm always looking for a reason to take the kids fishing, or camping, or do work outside. I love being outside, and these kids love it too. I mean, if you remember back when you were kids, that was a big part of your life, was spending time outside, playing with your friends, this and that. But the world has changed a lot, and I love to get them outside. That's my element, and they love it just naturally. So, but to have a father figure there, it's so rewarding as far as what you get back from it all.
Well, making those memories. We talk about past placements that we've had, and things that we've done, that you guys have done, that, just how that impacted our lives. And looking back on those memories, is fun, I feel like.
Yeah. So how has it impacted me, as a man and a dad? It has just allowed me to enjoy that role and learn from every mistake I've learned in the past with my biological kids, and given me a second chance, a third chance, fourth chance to do better. And it's an awesome thing.
Well, and these kids, I feel like, come into your home with kind of a tough facade. They have this wall that you have to kind of break down.
Yeah, and one of the things that I found is they are not expecting the guy of the house to have a soft heart, and to want the hugs all the time, and telling them good job and thank you and will you do this, and then it's just it's an easy role for me to play, and I think it's going to take the right person, but I think we all have it in us to want those things.
All right, well, that was it. So we will see you guys next time. Bye.
Peace.